Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in the series Freemasonry and Satanism, a continuation of this book, Secret Societies and Subversive Movements, Nesta H. Webster, 1924. Got a picture of Adam Ushtoff here, the creator of the Illuminati. You mention Illuminati, Freemasons to people, Jesuits, Zionists. They don't know what you're talking about. They think you're talking about some kind of boogeyman. They don't know history. The dumbing down of America and the world has been working for the culprits bent on world domination. So where I left off in the last video, we were doing the chapter on pan-Germanism. See that on the top? And what is involved in all this? You know, Germany, England, France, Israel, United States, Japan, Russia, and all the other countries of the world have suffered as a result of this world domination plan. Is there any question about that? Does anybody deny that? Honestly. The murder and mayhem, theft, chaos, anarchy, just complete bizarre suffering worldwide. Does anybody deny that? Eustace Mullins, in his book Murder by Injection, 1910, 1920, 1930, the Rothschilds were bent on putting fluoride in the water supplies all over the USA. Why? And then taking over the holistic medicine, making the doctors out to be quacks if they were using natural and methods, herbs and stuff like that to cure people. And then later on, you know, now they're trying to make activities, the drugs like that, herbal medicines and vitamins and other stuff, illegal. And got Monsanto making genetically modified food, which is destructive to the human body, as per testing done on rats. So I suppose if the rats can get tumors and cancers, we humans can too. So my point is, there's a lot of bizarre stuff going on now and in the past, and it might behoove us to figure it out. Who's behind it? What's going on? Where's it going? What's the future like? Why are they trying to destroy Christianity? Why are they promoting gay sex and a decadent, completely nasty, perverted agenda from everywhere from pedophilia to pansexual activities, bisexual activities, adultery, and everything else. So they want to bring us a Luciferic, Aleister Crowley, do as thou wilt agenda, and destroy Jesus and the Bible and Christianity and the Ten Commandments, and destroy the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and bring us some kind of noetic law, some Talmudic law, where certain elite people become the masters and we all become the slaves, that is, the ones of us they allow to live. But first they have to disarm the American people. They got this program called Agenda 21, Common Core, and many other things. Sustainability, global warming, global cooling, and then if that doesn't work for you, climate change. So there should be little doubt in anybody's mind with programs like Jade Helm putting troops and equipment all over the United States and not telling the people why. People see these things rolling by on train tracks, on trucks, on highways, scratching their head. What's going on? But the government deems that we don't have a need to know. Meanwhile, the security apparatus is ever growing. More security cameras monitoring the keystrokes you make on your laptop. TVs that watch you. Computers that compile data on you. So they can kind of catalog everybody into certain categories. Particularly the red dot category that you might find on your house or your mailbox or your curb, which says if when they pull off the revolution, and in normal revolutions, if there's anything normal about them, they do what they call a purge. All those people that they think that won't go along, that are intellectual, thinking people, people who see with the two eyes and hear with the two ears, they know who they are. They round them up and they kill them. So if you got a red dot out on your curb, be a little concerned. If you're watching this video, you might earn yourself a red dot. Just saying. That's the kind of stuff you'll find on the internet. So reading on this book, in this book a little more, this ought to be a very interesting video. It's the second part of this chapter on Pan-Germanism. What is Pan-Germanism? What is the Empire of Germany? United Kingdom of England? The Republic of France? The Russian Federation, Republic, whatever it is? China? Communist nation? Japan? The Ottoman Empire? Lots of stuff to know. Albert Pike, who wrote Morals and Dogma, the Bible for the Freemason. What did he have to say? So here we go. When Alsace-Lorraine, this is page 361, was restored to France. It's some property on northern France on the German border. It published an article showing how deeply the inhabitants of this province resented being transferred from the German Empire to the French Republic. So after World War I, they were transferring some land from Germany to France, and the residents, the people who were in control of the country, resented it, being reattached to France, or attached to France, from the German Empire. When a general strike threatened this country, it seized the opportunity to come out with an appeal in enormous capitals to revise the Versailles Treaty. Now remember, after World War I, in Henry Ford's books and other books, Nestor Webster, many Jewish people from New York City were the ones who were predominantly sent over there to France and Germany and divvy up the property and attach a financial bill on Germany that it could never pay. It was so monstrous. It was only going to exacerbate the German hatred and problems and economic distress and deaths and starvation. And it was orchestrated mostly by German Jews from New York who were in control of our president back then, who also, as we know, in 1913, during the Christmas holiday, while the congressmen and representatives in Washington, D.C. were home on vacation, they created the Federal Reserve, private enterprise by the Rothschilds with the Bank of Germany, Bank of England, Bank of Italy, Bank of everywhere. So that's when they took over the United States of America, when they took over our money. And as Rothschilds once said, I care not who the leaders of the country is, as long as I control the money. And if he controls the money, he controls the leaders. And in this country, the USA, and I suspect over there in the European Union, they control all the politicians, and a lot of them are appointed officials under this new world order thing they're creating. And the elected officials are losing power every day. FYI. So anyways, moving on here So the enormous reparations and efforts to let Germany off altogether have been, as itself observed, unceasingly. The plain fact is, as declared on December 17, 1921, that these fantastic reparation demands cannot be met, and that every payment by which Germany attempts to meet them with will only work further havoc to our own commerce and our own industry. We have urged the ceasingless for 3 years. We have urged that ceasingly for 3 years. So everybody was aware that when those flocks of Jewish people, not all Jewish people, but the ones who were in control of our USA government, in control of Woodrow Wilson, in control of the Federal Reserve, in control of lots of things. How did that happen in 1913 and 1914, 6 months later when World War I started? How did they get control of our country? We know they're in control now. Tex Mars and all those other books. CEOs of all major corporations, advisors to Obama. Even the Patriot, the Chernoff, the guy in charge of Homeland Security, dual citizen. And if anybody knows anything about these Israeli-American dual citizens, this has been argued and discussed for 100 years. And the fact is, their loyalties lie with Israel. They control our country and they get put in high places. And not all Jews. Remember, you can classify Jews into a couple classifications easily. The ones who are Christians or Orthodox Old Testament or even Torah Jews. The good Jews. And then the Talmud Jews and the Zionist Jews are the bad Jews. And I make no bones about discussing that, and I don't care even if the Jewish organizations out there want to say that if you're not supporting Zionists, you're anti-Semitic, then go on the internet and look up Zionism and images, and you'll see a bunch of rabbis and Jewish people with posters and banners fighting Zionists, saying ruling the whole world from Tel Aviv and Jerusalem is not a good thing, is not going to bode well for all of us. So I'm siding with those Jews who are good Jews. But then again, we know that they're calling Christians like me a hater if we don't support gay marriage and pedophilia, even transgenderism, adultery. How dare you say anybody's evil for doing adultery? Ashley Madison website guarantees confidentiality. Find you a secret person to cheat on your spouse with. Bestiality. When is that coming? Pansexuality. When is that coming? Is it already here? Can you have sex with an animal? I think one lady on the internet married a bridge named Diablo. Diablo means devil. And one guy on one video married a dog. He loved his dog. Crazy. You could see all the craziness on the television. I'm telling you, the Texas Rangers program, go watch it. The new one or whatever. They now, when they zoom that star with a circle around it, the Texas Ranger badge, they're now having an I and an S. And I've been watching the press releases today, and there were 2 press releases that these threats over in the Middle East, they're now calling them I and an S. Islamic State. So what's with that I and S on that badge zoomed up on the TV when the Texas Rangers start or ends? Take a look at it. It's not my imagination. I've seen it numerous times. Plus a lot of other demonic, satanic symbolism in the show. And if you watch the show itself, where Chuck Norris, Texas Ranger there, the theme of the programs are very occultic, some of them, and some of them are very barbaric and just portray the human person as a real evil entity. It's all mind control. They want us to believe that stuff is real, that we humans are animals, not to be trusted, need to be policed, microchipped, enslaved. And if there's too many of us or we're too old, kill them. But getting back to this Alsace-Lorraine land partitioning back to France, and the citizens didn't want to go back to France and wanted to stay with the German Empire. And they thought that the Versailles Treaty, the reparations were astronomical, could never be paid. It was outrageous, and all that was controlled and put on the Germans' back by the Jews from New York and elsewhere, probably the Rothschilds, banks, and the Illuminati, Zionist leaders of a lot of the Freemasonic lodges worldwide, Rosicrucians, probably even in cahoots with the Vaticans. Deals were made. How about we just say that? Like I keep saying, it's not just Jews. I'm learning as I go here too. But you know, you take all those leaders of countries and castles and banks and all that. They don't have to be Jewish people. But they want to keep their high power places. And then you have, throughout history, the Jewish people were always working with them against the citizens everywhere, taxing them and preparing for wars and all kinds of an intrigue behind the scenes, creating all these situations. And people who become a little wiser to the fact, many times wind up dead. One guy commented to me on my last video I just did and said he was really upset that there was one guy in Canada who was, this is 1987 or something, who was investigating the same things that I'm investigating on these books and stuff like that. They bombed his house. And we know now a lot of people investigating vaccines have been mysteriously dying. Holistic doctors are mysteriously dying. Astronomers are mysteriously dying. On YouTube, you can look these things up and watch the videos and decide for yourself. Banksters dying, witnesses dying, all kinds of people. So it's a very slow thing they're doing, inching their way with towards this world domination. So back here in history after World War I, the plain fact is it declared on December 17th, 1921, that these fantastic reparation demands cannot be met, and that every payment by which Germany attempts to meet them will only work further havoc to our own commerce and our own industry. So those overburdened reparation demands on Germany wasn't helping anybody, but probably helping them towards their goal of controlling the country and bringing about the New World Order and ridding the country or suppressing Christianity and decency. We have urged that ceasingly for 3 years. Today, even the Premier begins to see that we were right and that the interests of this country demand that scrapping of the whole bad business of making Germany pay for World War I. And let's just say this. Germany was winning the war with England. So what I thought I would do is a little visual here. I like to do my homework. So that piece of land in Germany that we're talking about, the Alsace-Lorraine, German Reichsland, was a territory created by the German Empire in 1871. After it annexed most of Alsace, I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, and the Moselle department of Lorraine following its victory in the Franco-Prussian War. So the war with all the people in the German area, which is Prussian, against the French in 1871. So there was a war before World War I with France and Germany. So Germany annexed the land. The Astaten part lay in the Rhine Valley on the west bank of the Rhine River and east of the Vosges Mountains. The Lorraine section was the upper Moselle Valley of the north of there. So the territory made up 93% of Alsace, whatever they were. 7 remained French. And so in relation to a special legal status since its revision to France following World War I, the territory has been referred to administratively as Alsace-Moselle. So here it is on this picture, the land they're talking about. This would be the German territory, which would be called Pan-Germany. All of this, Poland, Austria. There's the logo, or the coat of arms, crest, whatever. Coat of arms, and the flag. So anyways, in that piece of land, when they gave it back to France, the Frenchmen said, hey, we'd rather belong to the German Empire than to the French Republic. Just goes to tell you some background stuff about politics. But it gets more interesting. So we're talking about Pan-Germany. So I thought, to educate myself and anybody who wants to watch these videos, I would look at a map of the world back then in Pan-Germany. And you can see it encompasses quite a huge portion of land. Germany does, here in this color here, orange. And then you have, of course, France and Spain and Italy. And here you have the Austria-Hungary territory. And then, of course, you have Russia over here. So you had Austria-Hungary. What I really wanted to point out here, before I got the phone call, is look down here to the Middle East. This would have been the Ottoman Empire. So all that land south of the Black Sea, a lot of the Middle East, was the Ottoman Empire, Russia, Austria-Hungary, and you had Greece here, small country. So when you go look at the map and you see who the players were, there was Russia, Ottoman Empire, Austria-Hungary, Germany, Pan-Germany, France, Spain. So my point is, if you look at the industrial complex, I guess you could say, here was England, and here was Germany. And Germany says German Empire, and this says United Kingdom. So you had the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, right here. And then you had the German Empire, Austria-Hungary, Russia, and then the Ottoman Empire. Then the Kingdom of Italy. So again, when I talk about the meshing of the people that were controlling these empires, like it says here, the German Empire, you can read the words, go look up this map yourself, just look up Pan-Germany, and then over here, United Kingdom, and then the French Republic, and then the Kingdom of Spain. See that? It says Kingdom of Spain. So all these people who were controlling or having these empires or kingdoms were not all Jews. And many of the elitist Jews wanted to marry into these families to gain power. This is what I've learned studying my history. They don't teach you this stuff in schools. Again, another thing I'd like to say. So they had the Ottoman Empire. And I think World War I, they were breaking up the Ottoman Empire. I'm not sure exactly when that was destroyed. But that left all those Middle Eastern countries exposed for anybody to grab. And that's been a battle, and it's been part of the plan. So when I talk about all these kings and queens and dukes and people in high places in these countries, and these Zionist world domination Jewish people, Talmudic, they're working in cahoots against all the citizens of the world. Seems pretty plain to see. It's just interesting how these maps tell a story. United Kingdom of Great Britain, Kingdom of Spain, Empire of all Russia. That's what it says here. So think of the mindset. People running the show here in these countries. Empire leaders. And then Italy, you know, the getting rid of Caesar and bringing in a pope. Sending out emissaries and priests and bishops all over the world preaching Christianity. Slaughtering people along the way and stealing lots of gold. In cahoots with the kings and queens. 8 crusades from 1000 AD to 1300. 300 years. They would march. This is an interesting story here. They would march from all these kingdoms. Spain, France, I can't see this backwards. France, Germany, Austria. And they would march across the land here, across the Ottoman Empire, killing and stealing cattle all the way to Jerusalem and all the other cities along the coast, which there are quite a few. Killing all of the Arab inhabitants, overtaking the castles, and setting up little kingdoms. And then after 20 or 30 years, some Arab leader would rise up and get all the Arabs together, united, and go down the coast and start taking back the castles and slaughter all the pilgrims and Christians who left all these kingdoms and empires to go over there to the Middle East. And the elites, of course, would hop on a ship and sail back over here through the Mediterranean back to their kingdoms. 8 times. So then 10, 20, 30 years later, the Pope would, everybody would get riled up and somebody would stir it up intellectually. Propaganda like we have today. This is all relevant. The Pope and the kings and queens would make deals. And then all the peasants would be formed into armies from all these countries. From England, Spain, France, Germany, Hungary. Marching across here, Italy, marching through here, pillaging along the way to get to the Middle East. 8 times. And then again they would kill all the Arabs, take over the cities, knee-deep in blood, and split the guts open of the kids and women and men to see if they'd swallowed a gold coin to try to hide it and save it. John Robinson, in his book I've been over on my videos, which we'll go over again, details all this stuff. So again, you got all these elitists, different kinds of religions, Nordics, people into the Kabbalah, and in the Russian area, a lot of psychic stuff and witchcraft, and just a really big world of turmoil were caused by all this stuff. I hope that made some sense, because I got a little more. So Albert Pike wrote a letter back in 1871, so they say. Think about this. After the Confederate War between the North and the South in the United States. And Albert Pike was a leading Freemason. And I guess politically he was higher than the President of the United States. That's how powerful these Masonic lodges are all over the world. See the Ottoman Empire here? That's what was destroyed to create all this havoc in the Middle East to bring about, I guess, the state of Israel. So I'm tying in these Talmudic Zionist Jewish folks in with the same program of the Masonic Lodges and Illuminati. And in cahoots with all these leaders who meet in secret and conspire against the people, even having wars between these countries to make money and kill off the people. The citizens are none the wiser. Their two leaders had planned this from up here, and then they put all their citizens at each other's throats to kill each other so they can achieve some kind of financial and goal that they want. Maybe population reduction. Unwanted people, unneeded people. I get a little emotional about all this stuff. It's an interesting story, but we're living it today. That's my point. So Albert Pike received a vision. Albert Pike and the Three Wars, you can go look this up. Back in 1871, and didn't we realize here, back, what year was it when France and Germany had a war that I just talked about? I think that was back there in So isn't this interesting? Was it the Alsace-Lorraine territory, part of Germany, annexed from France in 1871? They had a war between France and Germany. Meanwhile, in 1871, I think that's just an interesting coincidence, Albert Pike received a vision. There's another thing we need to talk about. All these people into this occultic stuff. Witchcraft, Kabbalah, meditation, yoga, shakas, all this stuff. Masters, spirit guides. New Age religion. Destroying Christianity. And they want to destroy the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and bring around this New World Order. And they're getting visions, as it says here. And so Albert Pike wrote a letter, he wrote to Mazzini, a friend of his over there in Italy, August 15th, 1871. The same time that France and Germany were ending a war and annexing some land called the Alsace-Lorraine. You think all this stuff is connected? The letter geographically outlines plans for 3 world wars that were seen as necessary to bring about a one world order. So if you looked at the map there, you see who the players are. We know we have also the Jewish intrigue with the Zionist and Talmudic ones trying to destroy the Torah Jews and the Old Testament Jews and the atheist Jews who didn't want to get involved in anything. But these Talmudic Jews and Zionist Jews who were leading the hierarchy would make life difficult for them and even create situations where people hated them, causing anti-Semitism to get these good Jews back into the fold. And then when these European countries were all having wars and wanted to oppress the people and collect taxes, they hired these bad Jewish people. It's an interesting story. So anyways, Albert Pike wrote this letter at the same time that France and Germany were ending a war. All this was probably being piecemeal, working towards the New World Order. Pike's letter to Mazzini, and I want to be honest here what this thing says. This guy says it is a commonly believed fallacy, so false information, that for a short time the Pike letter to Mazzini was on display in the British Museum Library in London. And it was copied by William Guy Carr, former intelligence officer for the Royal Canadian Navy. So the British Library has confirmed in writing me that no such document has ever been there. And of course they would deny that. I just wanted you to know this is what it says. But more in detail is what the letter says and what has happened in history. I kind of guess validates the fact that the letter must have been authentic. It appears that Carr learned about this letter from the Cardinal Cairo Rodriguez of Santiago, Chile, who wrote The Mystery of Freemasonry Unveiled. Suppose I'll have to try to get that book. That's how I get books. I read documents, I read books, they talk about books, I go get that book. It talks about books, I go get that book. That talks about books, I go get that book. Or I watch videos on YouTube, and the author of the video will talk about a particular book. I don't believe anybody, I go get the book. And then I make videos and show you pages of the book. So anyways, Albert Pike wrote a letter in 1871, which was after the war between the North and the South in the United States, which again was meant to weaken the United States and confiscate a lot of the properties from the landowners in the South. That was their aim. Then they had carpetbaggers coming from the North that confiscated everything and took over cities and towns. And so there was an ulterior motive behind the Confederate War between the North and the South. And Albert Pike was a leading general for the South, who was pardoned by the president of the North after they had a meeting. And then Albert Pike, or whatever, there was a 33-degree Masonic degree bestowed upon the president of the North. More intrigue. So anyways, in his letter, Pike says the First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati. Here's the Illuminati in Albert Pike's letter in 1871. And Illuminati just means illuminated, which means you study from the mystery school of Babylon information. The hieroglyphics and the secrets they know on those pyramids in Egypt. Ancient Atlantean folklore or history. Whatever they know, they're not telling us. Who knows what's in the storage vaults at the Vatican and elsewhere, private collections, and with the Smithsonian. That's an interesting story. Anything interesting gets found anywhere in the world, like 30-foot tall skeletons. The Smithsonian swoops in, confiscates everybody, shuts everybody up under threat of death or imprisonment. Then how do you add into that with the UFO and alien things when we know that the Jewish people and these people in high places controlled the printing presses and the book publishing companies? You know, I guess it sold a lot of UFO books with all that stuff with those other tabloid magazines. So you just got to think and go, what is real here? And then we look at the TV now with the mind control. So what they're doing now is modern mind control. And what they were doing back then was old-fashioned mesmerism, trances, propaganda, mind control. They've been playing with the masses of people for a long time. And now in the United States and Georgia, USA, they got those guide stones that say they want a worldwide population of 500 million. So I suppose 6 billion people have to die. Are we supposed to believe those stones they put up? I say yes. Are we supposed to believe what our eyes see when their sky sprang? I say yes. Are we supposed to believe that all those Arabs are being killed in the Middle East and even the turmoil in the Ukraine is just something that happened and wasn't planned? But we know that's not true. General Wesley Clark said he went to the Pentagon. One of his buddies in the hallway said, come into the office. Gave him all the details. General Wesley Clark, you can go on the internet and see him say it in his own words. It was all planned. 9/11 was planned. And we know they want to take all the guns from the people. So all this stuff I'm talking about is connected. And we the people, it might behoove us to wake up. So the First World War would be brought about, overthrow the power of the czars of Russia. So they did have the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. Look how big Russia is compared to the whole of the Europe. This is only a portion of Russia. So they needed a stronghold for communism. And so they took on the giant. They killed the... That's an awesome, horrible thing they did. I shouldn't say awesome. It was unbelievable. I just watched a video of somebody who sent me on the video I did prior to this one. And it shows all about the Jewish... no, that was one I got from somebody else. But it shows the Jewish Bolshevik invasion of Russia and taking the Tsar, his wife, 4 daughters, the little boy, away from the population, abducted them, took them to some old remote castle, took them down in the dungeon, and said, hey, when they had chairs there, and they said, sit down, we want to have a group picture of all of you. And the whole family sat down and they pulled out machine guns and guns and just started mass killing them against the wall. Again, I say that because this is what we're dealing with. Why were those doctors into vaccines dying? The ones into holistic medicine dying? Astronomers dying? The Middle East, all those people dying and fleeing to Europe? Does anybody not think this is going to come to the USA to roost? This is what's happening there is going to happen here. Does anybody not think that? In Europe, getting all those countries to be part of the European Union because of financial distress, bankruptcy, which was intentionally put on them, as John Perkins said in his book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, that we went over. So it's all planned, like Albert Pike says in this letter. Never going to get any of that book done by all this commentary. So Albert Pike says the First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars of Russia and making that country a fortress of atheist communism, and the divergences caused by the agent or agents of the Illuminati between British and German empires. And we saw the British Empire and the German Empire. And Germany was growing, and it was not profitable or good for the England, the United Kingdom. So they were having a war. They were losing the war, but Germany was building submarines and sinking ships. And so the Rothschild Zionist Jewish family and everybody else at the top saw an opportunity to get their Ottoman kingdom destroyed and get the land of the Palestinians. So they made a deal with England. We've gone over the books, called the Balfour Agreement, that if they gave them money and got the USA into the war with Woodrow Wilson after they took over our Federal Reserve, then England would probably win the war, which it did. And then they had the Versailles Treaty, which put reparations on Germany that was just too astronomical to pay, creating more havoc and chaos and anarchy and death. You know, if people really researched this and looked into it, especially American citizens, we would be mad as Hades that they would be making deals with our president. And we were pro-German back then, by the way. World War I, Hitler wasn't around then. It was World War II. World War I. Germany wasn't no evil nation then. It was World War I. Its only crime was they were hardworking industrialists. They were growing, which was a threat to the United Kingdom. So they fooled the American people who were pro-German with the president and all the Zionist Jewish people advising Woodrow Wilson. And there are books on this, and we're going to go over it in this material that I've been going over, and there's a little more. I'm going to go over some more. It tells all this story. So they deceived us USA people. We went over there to Europe, and we helped them kick Germany's butt. We were deceived into it. Then we also allowed all these Zionist Jewish folks and bad other people to gain control of our USA, and now they want to take us down but they have to take away the guns, and have already pretty much in people's minds destroyed Christianity and the belief in Jesus and all that, and convinced everybody that the gay agenda and all this other craziness is good. So they're getting us mind controlled that bad is good and good is evil. Up is down, down is up, and 2 + 2 = 5. And some guys with box cutters did 911. And the sky spraying isn't really happening, even if you can take your camera and take a picture. Don't believe what you see. Believe with that mind control. Nightly news and programming of all those other shows, NFL, American Idol. You see all that mesmerizing thing they do with those things that turn and zoom up and the all-seeing eye in the background. The Grammys, football halftime shows, Olympic opening, the Emmys. They're doing it to you. They're doing it to all of us. Shiva, Kali on the Empire State Building. The big goat on the Hoover Dam. The goat is a symbol for the devil. George Bush reading My Pet Goat during 911. Shiva is out front of CERN, the collider, at Switzerland and Geneva. I learned some more about Geneva. That's interesting. Switzerland. And then their logo is 666 at CERN. Crazy. Then they put a Jesuit Pope in charge of the Vatican. And the Jesuits are the military arm of the Vatican, if you didn't know that. The assassins, they call them sometimes. And the leader of them would be the Black Pope. So the Vatican has now installed the Black Pope in charge of the Vatican. That should be concerning. Why would they put the warrior in charge of the church? Some kind of New World Order takeover? Some false flag in the United States and the world? Project Bluebeam, holograms in the sky, fake nuclear attack, fake alien attack, fake plague. Hey, they give us fake global warming per Al Gore. So anyways, Albert Pike said the Illuminati create turmoil, the divergences between British and the Germanic empires will be used to ferment the war. So they had this turmoil between United Kingdom and Germany, and using their propaganda and all their Jewish Zionist people controlling banks and media and presses and all that stuff, it's easy to push the propaganda onto the people. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. They're after the religions. Students of history will recognize that the political alliances of England on the one side and Germany on the other, forged between 1871 and 1898 by Otto von Bismarck, co-conspirator of Albert Pike, the leading Freemason, were instrumental in bringing about the First World War. You get it? It's all planned by these New World Order folks, New Age force, to destroy religion, Christianity, belief in Jesus, as Rabbi Marvin Antelman said in the videos I went over, to eliminate the opate. And then, of course, PhD Henry Macau, Jewish author in Canada, wrote the book Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. The evidence is overwhelming. I've got hundreds of hours of videos out there. I didn't expect anybody to go spend 10 years and read hundreds of books like I did. So I thought I would make some videos that would make the job a little quicker for people to pick up on what's going on. So the Second World War, according to Albert Pike, back in 1871, must be formatted by taking advantages of the differences between the fascist and the political Zionist. So between the industrial leaders and the political Jewish Zionist. So they had differences between the industrial leaders and the Zionist leaders. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel. 1871, Albert Pike. In Palestine, during the Second World War, international communism must be strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would then be restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. Wow, so they plan on this end of the battle game of the world against the Christians. After the Second World War, communism will be strong enough to begin taking over weaker governments. They've been doing that. John Perkins in his book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. The Pools in their book, Who Financed Hitler. I could sit here for hours and name my books I have that I've gone over and read. In 1945, at the Potsdam Conference between Truman and Churchill and Stalin, so you got Truman, United States, Churchill, England, and Stalin, a large portion of Europe was simply handed over to Russia. Remember, it had been taken over by the Zionist, Bolshevik Jewish people in 1917, after World War I. So they had all of Russia. Look at the map. See why I got the map out? And they handed over a lot of this land next to Russia after World War II to Russia. Oh my. Those people were behind the Iron Wall for years. We all know that. Handed it over to Russia, and on the other side of the world, the aftermath of the war with Japan helped to sweep the tide of communism into China. So these people have been involving the whole world. Least we not forget the many countries that were overthrown in South America, Central America, and Africa. Korean War, Vietnam War. Does anybody not see this big New World Order game that's afoot? And the New World Age? So the New World Order and the New Age, let's agree, is one and the same. Controlled by the Zionist Jews and the Illuminati, Freemasonic lodges, Church of Satan, Rosicrucian, Jesuits out of the Vatican, which would entail all of the leaders of the non-Jews, of the Gentiles. So all of our leaders are conspiring with the Zionist Jewish people. They've made a deal so they don't lose their positions of power to suppress and enslave the population of the planet. Readers who argue that the terms Nazism and Zionism are not known in 1871 should remember that the Illuminati invented both of these movements. The Illuminati, Weishaupt, who worked for the Rothschilds, the Zionist Jewish banksters. And that, with the technology they have today, monitoring people, and it makes sense that they would put drones everywhere and cell phone towers and satellites in space and gigantic computers called the Beast to compile information, and they want to microchip everybody. They really plan on enslaving the world and killing off a huge portion of the population, according to all this stuff that I've been reading. And please, in the comment section, if there's something I've misquoted or you think I have wrong, be polite and let me know. And thank you for those who send me other information that I didn't know about, because then I read it and I add it in future videos. So, in addition, communism as an ideology and as a coined phrase originated in France during the Revolution, which, according to Nestor Webster, I've got the book, The French Revolution, a lot of the intrigue was behind these conspiratorial Jews with more Talmudic types, Zionism. There were even the banksters for the Vatican back then, were the tax collectors for the kings and queens, and the organizers of wars for supplies and equipment and all that. They were always into the money. Since Jesus, 2,000 years ago, overthrew the money changers' tables in the Bible. We're dealing with the same folks and the same story. And Jesus said to these people, I know who your father is. I'm paraphrasing. And he said it was Satan. And there's like a dozen different references to Satan in the Bible. And I need to go ahead and highlight all that and put it in one of my videos so we can understand who these aliens and UFOs and other beings really are. In 1785, Reist coined the phrase 4 years before the revolution broke out. That would be the phrase communism. That's 1785. That's right after the Confederate War between the North and the South. They had already termed this world communism. Get the word commune. You know what a commune is? With the hippies, they like to think it's something nice. Smoking some marijuana and free love. I don't think that's what they have in mind. More like enslavement at mines and farms. And what is that movie? Hunger Games might be a better description of what they have planned, the movie. Divergent. People who don't go along with the New World Order and program and the mind control. Rust and Beloff, in turn, were influenced by Rosin, as was the most famous conspirator of them all, Adam Weishaupt. Okay, now we get to the meat of what I wanted to point out in this lengthy commentary of mine. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantages of the difference caused by the agentur of the Illuminati and between the political Zionists. And now, I keep telling you, the Illuminati, the agentur, were all the kings and queens and leading rich people, presidents and senators and representatives in the Freemasonic lodges, all those high-level people that have been traitor to all of us citizens. And then their co-conspirators in that were the Zionist Jewish folks. So World War III is going to take advantage of the differences between these Illuminati folks and the Zionist folks. So we knew that was going to happen. These Zionist Jewish folks who want the New World Order, like is described by Professor Higgins in the Jewish Utopia and many other books, and the Bible and the Talmud, the best of the goyim will be killed, as we have discussed, are now going to turn on the Illuminati that are controlling a lot of the world, the elite royal families, etc. So Third World War will be use that, so they'll try to appease us citizens, telling us that all these evil politicians need to be destroyed. Get it? That's what it says here. You can look it up yourself. So the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionism and the leaders of the Islamic world. So the differences by the agentur of the Illuminati and the Zionists and the Islamic world leaders. You're going to get the Islamic world leaders, the Jewish Zionists, and the Illuminati all making war against each other, and all of we citizens will be stomped on as a result. They will destroy us as a result of their intent of bringing about a new world order. Mutually destroy each other. That's what I just said. It's what's in this document that Albert Pike, who had a vision, remember all this stuff is the theocracy and New Age and spirit guides and masters and Kabbalah and Hollywood and psychics. It's all having visions or communications with these higher beings. Nikolai Tesla said so. A lot of the books I went over of famous scientists were having visions or dreams. And most of them, their fathers were ministers or religious teachers. So they were into that prayer using the pineal gland, which, by the way, the fluoride in the water calcifies the pineal gland, so the rest of us people, praying or whatever, do not communicate with the divine. Why do you think they do that? They don't want us having religious experiments, as Rabbi Marvin Antolin said, to eliminate the opate. Opate means having the religious experience. That's why they want to destroy Christianity and Jesus and the other religions and their faith in God. That's what it says here, that he got this vision in 1871 and wrote a letter to Manzini. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on the issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. And they're really destroying us in the United States economically, which I suspect over in Europe they're suffering also. We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm with all its horror and show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism. So they want to create absolute atheism and let it unfold with its absolute horror of chaos and anarchy, like a Mad Max movie. Absolute atheism, origin of savagery and the most bloody turmoil. How many people you think will stand in line to get a mark at the beast and allow this New World Order to go into effect when they bring all this about that is described in Albert Pike's letter? And many other people. Then the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. There you go, the light being. Look up the painting of Lucifer in the Vatican cellar. Oh my God, the throne of Lucifer that the Pope sits on. The telescope in Arizona called Lucifer. Brought finally out of the public view, the manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement that will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Albert Pike, 1871, per a vision he received, and he was a leader who wrote of the Freemasonic lodges, who wrote the book Morals and Dogma, which is pretty much a mirror book to Helena Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine, which is the Hindu-Indian religion of Shiva and Kali. Do you see how it all fits together? And those demonic beings are called the Destroyer. Something bigger afoot here. Since the terrorist attack on September 11, 2001, world events, and in particular the Middle East, show a growing unrest and instability between modern Zionism and the Arab world. This is completely in line with the call for a third world war to be fought between the two and their allies on both sides. The Third World War is still to come, and recent events show us that it is not far off, as I've been saying. But we can wake up individually. We can believe in God, Christianity, Jesus, if that's your religion. And in Proverbs it says, "He who seeks refuge in me, I shall be thy shield." Jesus says those who believe in him will be saved. So I'm not the greatest biblical scholar. Probably ought to study more on that direction. So there's more to this document. Freemasonry Inside Out. This sensational new analysis of the Masonic Brotherhood examines the basic question asked by for almost 300 years by the general public, and surprisingly by many Masons themselves. And like we have already been saying, many Masons themselves are not aware of this. Many Jewish people who are not in cahoots or at the high levels are not aware of this. They even picket and riot over there in Israel, some of those people, against some of these agenda. But the higher levels, like I say, of these Illuminati people ruling the world, capitalist banksters, and these Zionist Jewish folks who have always been supporting these regimes and charging interest, always have been working together against us. And propaganda and lies in the media. We citizens need to wake up. Other things it references in this document: evidence that Albert Pike was a chief judicial officer of the KKK. And KKK, there you go again, number 11 of the alphabet. Numerology says 11 times 6 is 66. A is 6, B is 2 times 6 is 12, C is the third letter, it's 18. So 11 is 66. KKK is 6666666. Now that's pretty 666-y. And 666 is the mark of the beast. So it's almost, and they used to burn those big crosses and all that stuff. Definitely evil. So Albert Pike was one of their chief or leaders. So it says. You got to do your homework. Don't believe what I say. Layout of Washington, D.C., which we all know is satanic. The big owl, Moloch, the demonic being. We're in the Bohemian Grove in California, where Alex Jones of Infowars.com snuck in there, took a video. They got a gigantic owl, and they all dress up. Our political leaders have been photographed there, from Reagan to Bush, Kissinger, a lot of them, CEOs. Again, these Illuminati leaders, Freemasonic leaders, occultism, Mystery School of Babylon leaders, have been photographed at the Bohemian Grove in long robes, apparently naked, and a big gigantic owl with a fire in the belly, and they throw in a baby. Cremation of care. While they're screeching and hollering like a Halloween party. And then they ship in gay men so they can have some kind of satanic ritual sex. So anyways, Washington, D.C.'s street plan, if you go look on the computer, is a gigantic owl and Masonic symbols and a big obelisk right there in Washington Square, which is the phallic unit for Osiris, which is one of those over there in the pyramids, one of those in the courtyard of Rome, all over the world. In your city square, there's an obelisk. The stuff is infiltrated everywhere. Layout of Washington, D.C., and discussion of how President Andrew Johnson considered himself to be the subordinate to Albert Pike, the leader of the North American Freemasonry. So there you have it. I just looked up Albert Pike and the 3 World Wars, and this is the document I found. And I wanted to familiarize myself about that piece of land they were talking about that was annexed from France when Germany won the war in 1871, which is when Albert Pike wrote this letter. Strange. So before World War I, there was actually this France-German war about 30, 40, almost 50 years earlier. They were in dispute. And that was between France and Germany. And World War I was between Germany and England. And the citizens didn't fare well in any of those wars. And then we know after World War I, the Bolsheviks went into Russia, abducted the Tsar, his wife, and 4 daughters and little boy, and took them to a remote location, kept them hidden for a while, and then took them down to the cellar and said they needed a group picture, and then pulled out guns and started shooting them all, and the little boy was still moaning at the end of it all. And according to that video, one of the Bolshevik Jewish people went over there and shot him twice in the ear. So we're dealing with some pretty serious entities here who are vying for a new world order. With that said, I guess I'll continue with my book here. If all that didn't confuse you, I'll be happy. So now that we've had a lot of background, we have urged. This is that little piece of land that was returned to France, the Alsace-Lorraine. We have urged that ceasingly for 3 years. Today, even the Premier begins to see that we were right, and that the interests of this country demand that scrapping of the whole bad business of making Germany pay for World War I. Where Germany was betrayed by the Jews in its own territory. We went over that book. Who were escaping from Russia, which later on they took over Russia and killed the Tsar and his family. All this stuff fits together. Indeed, when the interests of Germany were concerned, this paper, which Lenin had described as our own organ, but which still might be truly be claimed by Ludendorff and Steins, was quite ready to throw socialism to the winds and plead the cause of capitalism. So I had some highlighted notes here on the bottom. The Herald Daily, January 26, 1923. So tender a regard did the Daily Herald entertain for the feelings of the German magnates that its susceptibilities were deeply shocked at the correspondence of another paper, who, after launching with Herr Thyssen, was so ungentlemanly to comment afterwards on the display of wealth he had witnessed. The Daily Herald for February 2, 1923. Yet the Daily Herald reporter had seen nothing ungentlemanly in attending a garden party at Buckingham Palace and publishing a sneering account of it afterwards under the heading of Pomp and Farce in the Palace, dated July 21, 1921. So we know these people who live in these palaces and all these other wealthy castles, and in the United States, these skyscrapers, and you can't get inside without an ID card. Who knows what's going on? Even the huge courthouses, like in Orlando and other cities, you can go look, and there's tall buildings you can't get into. And they've got this big platform up there. And it just makes me wonder, what's coming into our future? Who's going to be standing up there, speaking to the masses 24 is below? And it reminded me of those scenes in Star Wars, where the Empire had those meeting areas and all that, speaking to all the people. Look at your downtown city, these new buildings they built, and look up there and see that Mayan pyramid-type structure where they're going to be speaking from. Why did they build that? What's planned? And let's not forget that Catholic building, cathedral, church, whatever you want to call it, built in Dominican Republic. Go look it up and see the pictures. I've gone over it in previous videos. They said when you go inside, it's a long hallway with cells on the right and the left and bars on the doors. So whenever they pull off this world revolution, domination, New World Order, and they do the purge and they round up certain people from all over the world, I suspect they're going to take them down there to the Dominican Republic and put them in all those cells. And on the top of this building looks just like a Mayan pyramid, where they used to behead people and toss the head down the steps. And they're probably going to have some crazy, insane, satanic rituals happen then. My opinion. Look it up. Don't believe me. Take some notes. I'll read a little more and then maybe finish this video tomorrow. With 1.25 million unemployed and large numbers of the working class unable to find homes. That sound familiar? This is 1924. The professed representatives of labor have persistently clamored for the removal of restrictions on alien immigration and alien imports. This is 1924, Nestor Webster. They haven't changed their game plan at all. So although through the trade unions the British worker was so rigorously protected against the competition from his fellow Briton, no obstacles were to be placed in the way of competition by foreign and frequently underpaid labor. This is 1924, almost 100 years ago. Same program, same stuff dumped onto the people. Stress, poverty, pain, suffering. Just saying, 1924. All right, continuing on. Page 362. Listen up. The working classes of people can never be free until they learn to think for themselves instead of allowing their thinking to be done for them by the middle-class exploiters of labor. Yes? No? The hand of Germany behind socialism must be apparent to all those who do not deliberately shut their eyes to the fact. It is significant to notice that the nearer socialism approaches to Bolshevism, the more marked this influence becomes. And all this is tied into communism. And if you don't know what communism is, just pay attention to the word itself. Commune. Ism. Capital. Ism. Social. Ism. So commune means like a communal living. And like I said earlier, not like the hippies used to think of it as a love fest. They used to call it festivals in England and Europe. So what they were doing here in the USA, they were doing in Europe under a different name. And I remember it was the Vietnam War, and they were introducing we the people, especially the young people, into drugs. Acid, window pane, opium, marijuana. They were really transforming the nation. And least we forget the books published at that time. I'll take a look at those. But they were seriously concerned with population, and they wanted to reduce it. They were afraid there were too many people because they can't control all the people. They were afraid of losing their high positions. Like it says here, you can't let other people make decisions for you because obviously they have their own interest at heart. Just saying, Nestor Webster, 1924. This is the case even in France, where the Bolsheviks, these are the people who went into Russia, under the guidance, I suppose, of the Rothschilds, Illuminati banksters, abducted the Tsar, his wife, 3 daughters, and the boy, and probably other people, took them to a faraway place, remote, and then shot them all, murdered them, the Bolshevik Jews. The people who are fomenting this New World Order, New Age. Make no mistake about it, same folks. Find favorite supporters in a group led by Marcel Ketchum, Florissant and Lugart, grandson of Karl Marx. The organization of the Bolshevik movement has indeed throughout owed a great deal of its efficiency to German cooperation, provided not only by the socialists, but by the monarchist element in Germany. The monarchist element would be the hereditarial leaders, descendants upon descendants over generations after generations, claiming themselves to be dukes and princes and princesses and kings, etc. It just might behoove us people. I'm a little worried about us in the United States with Agenda 21, Common Core, Patriot Act, all this other shenanigans, deception, lies, and the people are just being passive and let it happening to them. And ever so slowly, they're making more people believe that the United States people need to be disarmed with all these crisis actors and stage situation. So it seems, if you do some research and see the videos on YouTube, websites and books, we know they have a plan, and the ends do justify the means, as they say. All is fair in love and war, as they say, and we knew they have a plan of world domination, as they say, and they hate Christianity and Jesus, as they say. from our book reviews. But behind this mass of honest imperialist, and doubtless unknown to a great number, there lurk those sinister organizations, the Pan-German secret societies. A lot of secret societies in that area, and Russia, and England, Italy, France. They've spread all over the world. They call them the Grand Orient. And where is Israel? Right there in the Orient. Look at a map. Right there between the Orient and the Arabs. Moreover, as in the time of Gustav, the one who created the Illuminati, Bavaria is still the center for a secret society intrigue, and it was known here that Escherich founded the Eschen-Warner, sometimes known as the Orgress. I'm not saying these German words correctly, although I'm half German and half Irish. Maybe a little French in me. The Orgash, an organization Elderich with Munich as its headquarters. The Orgrish was followed by the formidable Murder Club, oh my God, known to all the world as the Organization C, or Council, named after its founder, the famous Captain Eckhart, whose nickname was Der Herr Council. During the year 1921, no less than 400 political assassinations were reported in Germany and said to be the work of secret societies. 1921. And we know here in the United States, according to YouTube videos and stuff I've researched, unusual deaths of doctors investigating vaccines, unusual deaths of holistic doctors, unusual deaths of astronomers, scientists, banksters, witnesses in unusual things, 911, etc. You suppose they're getting rid of key, knowledgeable people for something? Jade Helm, all those disbursement of troops and equipment, was that for nothing, costing all that money? The government buying hollow point bullets and everything else in mass amounts, including organizations like the Post Office or Social Security. It was all that for nothing? Building the FEMA camps, is all that for nothing? All the countries in the world gearing up with weaponry and all that, was all that for nothing? So back then in 1921, 400 political assassinations were reported in Germany and said to be the work of secret societies. And what about Obama purging the military of many high-level military leaders? Is all that for nothing? All those books written on New World Order, overpopulation, sustainability, all those graphs, all those plans, all that legislation, is it all for nothing? The Ebola scares, terrorism scares, comets hitting the Earth scares, Planet X, the destroyer Hercule Columbus coming, pole shift, Fukushima, Gulf oil spill. Just saying. Somebody's busy doing something, getting ready for something. And all those books about some kind of return of the Christ, some kind of being supposed to be coming back. CERN opening up the portal to allow the demonic beings to come back into this dimension. What's it all about? 1921, we hear Nestor Webster's thoughts back then. And the technology they have today, about all they're spying on us, monitoring us, cataloging us, who we are. Red dot people, yellow dot people. Is all that for nothing? Among the crimes attributed to the initiative of Organization C, the murders of Herr Esberger and the attempt on the life of Herr Schneiderman, 80 persons arrested for the complicity of the murder of Herr Rathenu were also said to be members of the same society, secret societies. Why do all these, this series is named Freemasonry and Satanism, and why when I read those Blue Lodge handbooks and other books from the lodges, why do they swear under threat of death with a dagger pointed toward their chest, their hand on a Bible, while they're blindfolded with a noose around their neck, a rope tie? That they'll keep everything secret and obey the master. And there's lodges on every street corner all around the world. Secret lodges. George Bush is from the Skull and Bones. What about the name of the club itself? Skull and Bones. The mind control. The people out there in mass everywhere with tattoos of skull and bones and daggers and other satanic stuff all over their bodies. You don't believe in mind control. How did that all happen overnight? Think about it. One day it wasn't there, and then you paid attention and it was everywhere. Same thing with tattoo parlors. This was all organized. One day they weren't there everywhere, and then they're everywhere. But as in the case of all secret societies, the visible leaders were not the real hierarchy. The visible leaders are not the real hierarchy. Like President Obama and Bush and Clinton, they're not the real hierarchy, the real puppet masters. A lot of people are aware of that. Behind this active body, there existed an inner circle organized on Masonic lines. Masonic lines. The Druidnorden, the Druids, their symbolism is the same as witchcraft, as Kabbalah, as Rosicrucian, as the Freemasonic books detail, as all the occult details. The Druidnorden, a name unknown to the public. And behind this again another and still more secret circle, which appears to be nameless. These would be the same symbols on the pyramids in the Egyptian texts and other monuments and pyramids all over the world, caves all over the world. Some ancient society existed. And apparently after the Great Flood, some of them survived, and they kept secret circles of all this knowledge and world control activity. So it appears. It is these inner rings which, whilst remaining monarchist in Germany, so these inner rings were remaining monarchist in Germany. Well, they had superior intelligence, knowledge, and so they could manipulate the people. So they were monarchists, family after family generation ruling things. And as I said, even with the Hebrews getting out of Egypt, who would have learned the Egyptian religion of this occult activities, had a secret knowledge within their body of people. So the monarchists, kings and queens, and these Hebrews who were living... The phone ringeth. So in these inner rings, which whilst remaining monarchist in Germany, work for other ends abroad, and are connected with the world revolutionary movement, which I call the world domination. These people with some kind of secret knowledge think that they should be ruling the world, and we people need to be contained like animals, or as the Jews call us, goyim, or the Freemasons and other Masons call us profane. Animals that are not to be trusted and need to be controlled. So that sounds like a Microchipping everybody, mark of the beast. This alliance between the two extremes of ardent monarchist and revolutionary socialism, that would be the kings and queens and all those leaders in high places, plus the Zionist Jewish folks, including the Jesuits and Vatican. Again, the Vatican is all high-level people, deriving from Caesar and the Empire of Rome at that time, switching over to the popedom in the Vatican. They want to remain in power, and they're not so, how should I say, seriously concerned with the peoples of the world as they are concerned with their own self remaining in power and their wealth and all their properties. The vaults in the Vatican could probably tell us some really interesting stories if we saw what they had there. Same thing with the Smithsonian. Same thing with the military bases, Area 51. All over the world, underground cities. Why did they build that vault in Norway and have started storing seeds? Just interesting questions. Existed at the beginning of the war or even earlier. And it is now well known it was the Jewish social democrat Israel Lazarowitz, alias Hierophant alias Purvis, who arranged with the German general staff, turning to page 364, for the passage of Lenin from Switzerland to Russia. All planned the overthrow of Russia, the largest empire in the world. And do you think they overthrew it, took control of it, just to lose control of it? And then they were moving on, taking control of all kinds of other things in the world, including the United Nations and South America, Central America, Africa, the Middle East, 911. And all they wanted to do is build their new world order. Were they going to let Russia go? Or is it all a facade, an appearance, a deception? According to Carl Radick, the Australian Jew deserter, and a number of other Jews. So that's where they got the information. Now Switzerland has been for hundreds of years a center of revolutionary and social society intrigue. Switzerland. I hear it's kind of tough living there. You certainly wouldn't be reading this book, creating this video. It'd be against the law. As early as the 16th century, the Pope, writing to the kings of France and Spain, warned them that Geneva was un for eternal da revolution. So Geneva is an eternal location controlling the revolution, i.e. New World Order. World domination. Joseph de Maistre, 1924, remember, quoting this letter in 1817, declared Geneva to be the metropolis of the revolutionaries, i.e. world order folks. Dominating the world from Geneva and controlling it with people in Israel from Jerusalem and Tel Aviv is the plan. Hence Zionism, because that's where Mount Zion is. It's a biblical term too. Elsewhere, a year earlier, he had referred to Illuminism, the Illuminati, 1924, as the root of all the evil at work. So that would be the pyramid with the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill as the root of all the evil at work. Get it? Got it? All right, here we're moving on. From an earlier sect existing at the end of the 15th century, so that would have been the 1400s. By the way, I did see a mistake I had done earlier when I said 15,000 to 14,000 to 40994. Sometimes I misspeak on the dates. So this says 14. Let's see here. Secret ring of Illuminism is believed to have been intimately connected with the organization of the Bolsheviks revolution, although none of the leading Bolsheviks are said to have been members of the innermost circle, which is understood to consist of men belonging to the highest intellectual and financial classes whose names remained absolutely unknown. So these were the people behind the Russian Revolution, behind World War I, behind World War II, behind the war in the United States between the North and the South. An unknown hand at work. And they have plans for a new world order and a new age. And they are enemies, arch enemies of Christianity and Jesus. And they seem to be part of the Aleister Crowley do as thou wilt cult, which is Luciferic satanic worship religion. Just saying. And there's an obelisk in every city square in the country. That's the phallic symbol for Osiris. Husband to Isis. Parents to Horus, the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill. Outside this absolutely secret ring, there existed, however, a semi-secret circle of high initiates, of subversive societies. Secret societies and subversive movements. Drawn from all over the world and belonging to various nationalities, German, Jewish, French, Russian, and even Japanese. So like I said, it isn't just these Jews who are Talmudic, Zionist, gone the evil way, against the good Jewish people who also get persecuted by these evil Jews if they try to defect and warn the rest of us. It's been documented throughout history. There have been even people in the Illuminati on YouTube videos and people in the Freemasonic lodges on YouTube videos, people in Hollywood who've said they've signed contracts in blood that have come back forward and told us of these details. Is there any doubt? The all-seeing eye on the dollar bill should be a warning flag to all of us. Taking over the Federal Reserve in 1913, hence taking over the United States, Rothschild said, I don't care who the leaders of countries are, as long as I control the money. He knew where the power was. The money controls the politicians. And they used the money to control the people, to bring them to their knees, cause depressions and bubbles, and saving and loan scandals and all that stuff. Promoting everybody through marketing to invest in that stuff, and then they crash it all and take everything away. This group, which might be described as the active ring to the inner circle, appears to have been in touch with, if not in control of, a committee which met in Switzerland to carry out the program of the Third International. It was thus in Switzerland that at the same time high initiates of the pan-German secret societies foregathered, and that is an active center, that as an active center of pro-German and anti-Entente and even Bolshevik propaganda was established. These Germans, although monarchists themselves, descendants of people in high places, cooperated with the secret revolutionary forces, world domination, in stirring up trouble in the countries of the Allies. So they got the secret societies here in the United States, in England, in Germany, in France, Russia, everywhere. And so when they create a war between two or more countries, they're in control of this and they have a purpose. They make a lot of money manufacturing armaments. They kill off a lot of people that get in the way. At the same time, the conference of the Second International, attended by members of the British ILP, took place in Switzerland, and at one of these, the Bern Conference of 1919, the delegates were entertained by a mysterious American millionaire, John D.K. And remember now they have meetings like the Bilderberg Group, meetings at the Bohemian Grove in California. They're still doing the same thing, operating with impunity, planning world domination, living himself in great style, paying for press service at the rate of 2,000 francs a day, lavishing money on the conference, and at the same time subsidizing a pacifist and defeatist paper called La Fuel. So they love being involved in newspapers, printing presses, and book publishing, and also, as we all know, Hollywood. And they've got themselves now as the advisors to the presidents and the political PACs, political action committees. Money talks. The German initiated disturbances in order to reduce Russia to chaos. They printed masses of paper money. Well, they're printing masses of our US dollars, diluting it, to pay for all their world domination plans, taking over of the world, to finance their schemes. The notes, of which I possess specimens, can easily be recognized by a special mark. They're doing the same thing today. They control the Federal Reserve. They control the American politicians. And obviously now all of Europe, since they formed the EU, European Union. What has Germany to say of all this? Simply that the promotion of Bolshevism was a military necessity in order to bring about the downfall of her opponents. So Germany and had major people in charge in the United States, Woodrow Wilson and others, were part of training and putting these Bolshevik Jewish folks into Russia to bring it down. Just like now they put in ISIS and Al-Qaeda to take down the Middle East. And then later on, when these ISIS, Al-Qaeda characters wind up gaining control, you know they will still be under control of the hidden hand, the secret societies. It's all part of a plan. But that the propaganda utilized by her was in reality a Jewish origin. So it says it right here. Behind all this activity are these Zionist Jewish organizations. And that Jewry, not Germany, was the real author of world revolution. We mean world domination, as Professor Higgins says in that book we went over, The Jewish Utopia. Robert Williams, The Ultimate World Order, found the book and went over it, and we went over it in a couple of videos. And the other books I've been going over, and the other books I'm going to go over more. And in the future, others. So stay tuned to my videos. And look at other videos too. And don't believe me or them. Get your notepad and paper, take some notes, do some research, collect some information, and form your own opinion. It is easy to see how such a theory can be made to serve the cause of pan-Germanism. For if Germany can persuade us that the Jews alone were responsible for the war and were the sole authors of Bolshevism, we shall naturally be led to the conclusion that Germany is, after all, innocent of the crimes attributed to her, and that our only safety lies in foregoing reparations, restoring her to her former power, and coalescing with her against a common enemy. So if we were to believe Professor Higgins in the book the Jewish utopia, or when I researched the material on the Jewish Bible, the Talmud, and other materials, the Protocols of Zion, and other books, one common enemy would be these New World domination folks, which is not entirely made up of just these evil satanic Jewish folks into the Kabbalah and occult. There are many of these monarchist people in high places who are able to be bought off and be made millionaires and billionaires and be promised that they're going to be part of this new world order, living a utopian life while the rest of us are enslaved. We shall therefore do well to accept with extreme caution advice on the Jewish question emanating from German sources, and to test the sincerity of the spirit in which it was offered by considering the relations which have hereto existed between the Germans and the Jews. Now, Germany, having been long the home of modern anti-Semitism, although in every country and in every period, but more particularly in the east of Europe, during the last century, the Jews have suffered from unpopularity. So why were they suffering from unpopularity? I can only think that is they wore out their welcome like an unruly child or an unruly guest. Not all Jews, as we already know. Go look up Zionism in images and you will see Jews are warning us, the Torah Jews, the Old Testament Jews, the God-fearing Jews, even atheist Jews who are not involved. They don't like this any better. Rabbi Marvin Antelman in his 2 books, Volume 1, Volume 2, To Eliminate the Opate. Opate means the belief in God. Why would they be so focused on that and canceling and ruining and destroying Christmas and Jesus and Christianity? One should ask themselves that question. It was Germany that organized this aversion into a definite plan of campaign. If in Russia, Galicia, and Poland, the Jews have met with sporadic violence, that's got nothing to do with the United States or Germany, but in Russia and Galicia and Poland, the Jews have met with sporadic violence at the hands of the peasants. That would be the working people. In Germany, they have been systematically held up by the authorities to hatred and contempt. So no matter who you are, I don't care what religion and nationality or race, if you're going to be arrogant and insulting people and taking and just being rude and nasty, and the ends justify the means, and if you were even to kill people to get their companies and businesses and land, you have to admit people would get a little bit annoyed. And so then you start calling those people that are a little bit annoyed anti-whatever you are, because they don't like the fact that you're using and abusing them. Am I wrong here? What did Jesus preach? Treat each other as you would like to be treated. The 10 Commandments are not horrible. Don't murder people, don't commit adultery, and don't steal are 3 that I can think of that if everybody paid attention to, the whole world would be better off. Don't covet, don't bear false witness. Isn't a decent, normal world better than a world of chaos and anarchy? But the New Age people think not. Aleister Crowley thinks not. These people who are Luciferic and Satanists think not. Luther, Kent, Fitch, Schopenhauer, I'm saying these names wrong, Treitschke, successfully invade against the Jewish race. Jews were denied admission to Masonic lodges and to the ranks of officers in the army, whilst society excluded them up to the outbreak of the war. Yet the extraordinary fact remains that of all nations, the Germans have always been the favorites of the Jews. So the Jews favor Germany as a nation to live. Throughout the whole movement of the unification of Germany under the aegis of Prussia, Jews played a leading part, and in the recent war, Germany found in some of her most valuable allies. So the Jews, some of the Jews were the most valuable allies. As Maximilian Harden recently pointed out, the services of the Jews to Germany during the war were enormous. This is World War I. The patriotism of the Jews was beyond reproach. In many cases, even ludicrous and offensive in its intensity. Now remember, a lot of Jews were leaving Russia because of the pogroms, P-O-G-R-A-M-S. These were laws and edicts, I guess you could call them presidential orders, executive orders, creating harsh conditions for the Jews in Russia. Because the Jews were offensive to the people there, whatever they were doing. So the Jews that were fleeing Russia went to Germany and were welcomed and treated decently. And here we see during the war, the Jews' patriotism was beyond reproach and in many times ludicrous and offensive in its intensity. But probably those Jews didn't know what the Rothschilds and the higher level people had planned when they betrayed Germany, went to England with the Balfour Agreement, and said, we'll provide the money and America for the war so that you can win World War I to England. That had to cause some very embarrassing moments for the patriotic Jews in Germany to realize that their higher-ups had betrayed Germany to get the land of Palestine to create the state of Israel. Ah, the intrigue. The secret societies, world domination, betrayal, deception. All the hallmarks of Satanism and Luciferianism. Demonic entities and activities. There was a strong affinity between the German and the Jew, so they had a love for each other. To the Ashkenazi Germany, even more than Palestine had appeared to the land of promise. So the Ashkenazi Jews saw Germany as a better place of land of promise than Palestine. But as I said before, higher-ups had different plans, or this may have been just the appearance the German people were getting from these people. Remember, part of the Jewish warfare tactic is deception. And they love to get two other parties fighting each other so they don't have to get involved in the bloody fighting. Divide and conquer. They do that all over the world. Thus, and that wouldn't, of course, not be all Jews. Thus, some years before the war, Professor Ludwig Geiger, leader of the liberal Jews of Berlin, denounced Zionism, Sophism, in the words. So the liberal Jews of Berlin were denouncing Zionism. Aha! So the Jews that were patriotic to Germany were denouncing Zionism. Aha! The German Jew who had a voice in German literature must, as he has been accustomed, a voice in German literature must, as he had been accustomed to for the last century and a half, look upon Germany alone as his fatherland, upon the German language as his mother tongue. And the future of that nation must remain the only one upon which he bases his hopes. Imagine what would have happened if the Rothschilds had not gone to England, had not betrayed Germany. Even the Rothschilds started their first bank in Frankfurt, Germany. Imagine if they had not turned traitor on Germany, and America was pro-German. Wonder how the world would be today. Remember, the United States declared its independence from England, the King of England. So somehow they took over our banks and our country And are we now operating under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? It seems like the officials running our country are ignoring those documents. All right, moving on. She has known how to use the Jews just as she has known how to use the Freemasons. That would be Germany's monarchy leaderships. The Illuminati and the socialists for the purpose of pan-Germanism, so building up the German Empire. The leaders were not all the citizens, like in the United States, with Jade Helmet dispersing all that equipment and troops and everything. Who's that for? It's not for the people. Don't even tell the people why they were doing it. They just leave everybody gasping with their mouth open, watching the endless train go by. What all that military equipment across Texas and South Carolina, California, Oklahoma, everywhere. From Frederick the Great, who employed the Jewish Ephraim to coin false money, to William II, who kept in touch with Rathenu by means of a private telephone wire, the rulers of Germany have always allowed them to cooperate in their schemes of world domination. There you go. So the leaders of Germany were dealing with the Illuminati high-level Jewish Zionists for the scheme of world domination. And we know a lot of the politicians here in the USA and have all gone that way. They all show it. They don't pay attention to people. You can read the Obama health care bill after it's passed. The Pacific Trade Agreement after it's passed. No, you can't read the Patriot Act, which is anything but patriotic, and all the other presidential executive orders and legislation they pass. It's not open for public eyes. What does that say? As the allies of Bismarck, who used them freely to fill his war chest, so the allies of Bismarck were using the Jews to fill his war chest. The Jews directed the power of the secret societies in the interest of Germany. So the Jews were behind the power of the secret societies. In 1871, the Jew Bolschwitzer acted as an advisor to the new German Empire as to the best method of wresting indemnities from France. And Germany, whilst heaping insults on the Jews, nevertheless fulfills certain conditions essential to Jewish enterprise. Unlike England and France, she has never allowed herself to be seriously weakened by democratic ideas. And therefore to the Jews, as to Britain, believers in autocracy, she represents a principle of stability. Moreover, Germany, as the home of militarism, offers a wide field for Jewish speculation. Some tough words here. What are we dealing with today in 2015? To perceive the bond of union between the two races, war is the national industry in Prussia. That would be the whole German area. And the wars are the Jews' harvest. So if Germany is a militaristic country, and this is where Jews make a lot of money, then the two go together. And I suspect that the United States right now is the Jews' harvest. Building FEMA camps and everything else, private prisons, making more laws. You probably can't leave your house for 8 hours and return without probably breaking one law. Just saying. Some cities, you give a poor person begging on the street a cigarette or money, you're breaking the law. As long ago as 1793, anarchist Klutz, the apostle of universal brotherhood, there is a Masonic term, and defender of the Jewish race, declared that if Germany were to be prevented from going to war, the Jews must be persuaded to withdraw their support for her military adventures. And as Rothschild's mother said, Rothschilds, the banks, they're head of the Illuminati. If my son wanted no wars, there would be no wars. It takes money. War could not begin or last in Germany without the activity and the intelligence and the money of the Jews. The Pools wrote that book, Who Financed Hitler? Go read it. Magazines and munitions of all kinds have provided by Hebrew capitalists and all the subaltern agents, subaltern, of the military provisionment are of the same nation. We have only to come to the understanding with our brothers, the rabbis, to produce astonishing, miraculous results. Spit out the correct words. Mr. Ford, the American motor car manufacturer, appears to have arrived at much the same conclusion expressed in words recently attributed to him. We don't need the League of Nations to end war. Put under control the 50 most wealthiest Jewish financiers who produce wars for their own profit, and the wars will cease. Did you hear what I just said? If you stop these Jewish financiers, because they make money on wars, we all know that, then there will be no wars. Makes one wonder about these programs in the United States. Let's call them programs like they did in Russia. Agenda 21, sustainability, global warming, global cooling, or climate change. Take your pick. Terrorism, gun shootings, threats of plagues and Ebola. Take your pick. They're using all this fear-mongering to pass legislation to suppress us, to reduce our ability to make money and create fortunes and family wealth, because then we know that they think we'll be a threat to them. Just saying, it is what it is. All right, moving on. For as long as the lust of war lingers in the hearts of Germans, and the lust of gain at the price of human suffering lingers in the hearts of the Jews, both races will remain necessary to each other, and the hideous nightmare of war will continue to brood over the world. You gotta love Nestor Webster. That's why I do book reviews. You know, who would be finding these books out if somebody was seeking out old books and reading them? I could have wrote a book and done some detailed studies on 9/11, Oklahoma City bombing, spent 2 or 3 years, and probably published a decent book. But I kept seeing that every time I tried to tackle something, somebody had already written a book. So I had an aha moment where I said, well, I need to do book reviews so I can reinvent these books and get them republicized. So go buy these books. And also on my videos, I always use these images, which I don't take credit for. I go on Zionism images, Zionism pictures, communism images, communism photos on Yahoo search or Google search. And they give you these image websites. And then I look through there and I find a picture that kind of seems appropriate for my video I just made. So I want to give those people who might see their pictures on my videos a heads up that I want to thank you. There's a lot of creative artists out there. And I even stopped hitting the monetary button on my videos because I didn't want to take any financial gain from using other people's pictures or books or nothing. And if anybody doesn't like it, if they see their picture on one of my videos, leave a note in the comment section and I will remove it. Just saying, some really nice photos out there that do say 1,000 words, and I've been using them. Moving on, page 368. There is then a great deal of truth, in the socialist phrase, capitalist wars. So they're using this socialism that many of my friends would even argue with me, saying, we need socialism, you know, I broke my back and I can't work and the government gives me a check. It's not a handout, it's part of what a decent country does. I agree. But they think they're taking it to an extreme creating a situation, moving all the jobs from the United States to other countries that were perfectly happy and healthy, and destroyed all their waterways. Look at the pictures in China now with the smokestacks and the pollution in the sky. It's insane. So they created the situation that creates an infinite increase in socialism, taking care of people that apparently they say we can't afford. But then again, I am reminded of the trillions that are spent each year from our Federal Reserve are not spent on us. They're taking our money from building their world empire from the United States. You know, the United States was a great country, and hopefully can be again. But if we pay attention to a map over in Europe, so what does it say? Empire of all Russia. German Empire. French Republic. Hungary. French Republic. Ottoman Empire. Greece stays a small place. United Kingdom of Great Britain. Kingdom of Spain. Kingdom of Italy. Kingdom of Serbia. So my point is, these monarchists that have these kingdoms and empires, as we just read in this book, are in cahoots with these Jewish folks who are apparently really good at tax collecting from the people and obtaining goods and creating oppressive situations. Kingdom of Norway and Sweden. Kingdom of Denmark. Kingdom. So now we know they're trying to use the United States. Somebody's in control of this country in creating some kind of empire of the United States. Wonder when they'll change the name and actually let us all know. They want to go back to some kind of feudal system. That doesn't sound good. So then whoever wants to work for the cheapest wage will get whatever manufacturing facility or agriculture that wants it. So the cheapest people, the hardest workers who will live on nothing will get the work. The rest maybe will starve. And in a feudal system, maybe just for a little bit of fun like chess or checkers, they'll have a nice little war between a couple feudal kingdoms and watch all their people take swords and whack off heads and arms and legs and stick them in people's chest and kill them. It's almost as if you would think that these monarchist and high-level Jewish folks get enjoyment out of that. They did it and do it enough in the past and in the current future. The current, past, and current future. All right. Capitalist wars, although not in the sense they attribute to it. For it will be noticed that the capitalists who are the most instrumental in making wars are precisely those whom the socialists are always careful to shield from blame. So we all know that all these big corporations that get caught doing evil things today get fines, but nobody goes to prison. But you try doing something real small with the average citizen, and you wind up in prison for 10 years or more. It doesn't make sense. You steal $1 million, you get slapped on the wrist. You steal $10, you go to prison. To be used by the sinister financial and militarist influences merely to weaken the Entente nations in the present critical situation, urging them to keep careful watch against such maneuvers on the part of the pro-German international financiers, who were able to exercise considerable reactionary influence among the wealthy and official classes of this country. So this was at a meeting of the Social Democratic Federation. Mr. Adolphe Smith moved the revolution, appealing to the organized workers of Great Britain to be weary of these financial influences. The connection between German imperialism and an international finance, Illuminism, Bolshevism, and certain sections of the British socialism is thus apparent. I'll read that again. The connection between German imperialism, 1924, international finance, that would be the Jewish Rothschilds and folks, Illuminati, 1924. Illuminism, Illuminati, Freemasonic lodges, Rosicrucians, all that stuff, occultic, Kabbalah, Hollywood, 1924. Bolshevism, Jewish folks who went into Russia and killed all the people, 1924. And certain sections of British socialism is thus apparent. So they're all working together in cahoots of world domination. Is Germany then the secret power behind the thing we call Bolshevism? Are Illuminism and Pan-Germanism one and the same thing? Well, who controls Germany? Certainly not the working people. To this hypothesis, two objections present themselves. Firstly, that the spirit of Illuminism and Bolshevism existed, as we have seen it in earlier chapters of this book, long before modern Germany came into existence. So with the Freemasonic skull and bones, Scottish Rite, York Rite, Rosicrucian, Hollywood banksters controlling the United States, our forefathers who created this country wrote the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, knowing full well that these evil secret societies existed and tried to protect us. They still infiltrated our system and seem to have taken over. And are bringing us things like Jadehelm, putting troops and people all across our country with great big United Nations symbols on these white vehicles, tanks even. Why would the United Nations be dispersing tanks across the USA? Good question. So anyways, those organizations, secret society, mystery schools, were in existence before modern Germany, 1924. And I'll add they were in existence before the modern USA, which seems not to have the interest of the USA citizens at heart at all. Just the opposite. They're importing more immigrants by the moment, diluting our nation, and especially trying to dilute Christianity and destroy it. There is a problem there. And secondly, that Germany herself is not entirely free from the contagion. For although the danger of Bolshevism in Germany has been doubtless greatly exaggerated in order to prevent the Allies from pressing their demands for disarmament and reparations, nevertheless Bolshevism, under its illuminated name of Spartacism, cannot be regarded as a movement entirely staged for the deception of Europe. The deception of Europe, Spartacism, that's another word for Freemasonic lodges. When they get initiated, they give themselves names like Spartacus and who knows what else. You can look it up. Moreover, just in the countries of the Allies, it has shown itself under the guise of pacifism, savagery anti-national, and pro-German. So in Germany and also in Hungary, it turned pacifism to the opposite purpose of professing sympathy at moments with the Allies. So when they do these things in the newspapers and nightly news and TV programming and movies and all that, most of the working men and women of the world, us normal average citizens, have no idea we're being mind controlled, deceived, propaganda, lied to, cheated. 300+ million people in the United States, and as big of a country as we are, with all the natural resources we have, we should all be wealthy folks. But the elites are taking that away. They're stealing it from us. Our inheritance. They intend to destroy us and enslave us. That's my opinion. Nestor Webster describes how it is back then in 1924. Albert Pike wrote the letter about the 3 wars that were required. Professor Higgins in the Jewish Utopia. Protocols of Zion. Report from Iron Mountain. It is clear then that besides pan-Germanism, there is another power at work, a power far older, that seeks to destroy all national spirit, all ordered government, in every country, Germany included. What is this power? A large body of opinion replies, the Jewish power. Nestor Webster says that, not me. The Jewish power. So that's the end of that chapter. We're going to move on to something else. So with this Jewish power and propaganda and deception and the goal of world domination, very subtle. They don't want people to really wake up. But they're inching forward and forward and forward. So what tool are they using now to take down the USA and suppress the people, to steal our inheritance? Think about it. As vast a country as this is, most of the resources have been fenced off from us. When I was a child, you could cross the street from where you lived and walk into the forest. Drive your car a mile down the street into the forest and shoot a deer. Or just go walk in the forest with your dog. You could go anywhere. But they fenced off everything everywhere. I regret that the younger people don't get to see reality as I saw it when I grew up. But they're doing it even worse now. They're creating a more harsh reality for the young people today. And that is Agenda 21. Coming right out of the United Nations, which is under these Jewish people's control, the Zionists, not all Jewish people. Page 10, and I've been doing a little bit of this in a lot of videos. I mean, it is, how many page book document is this? 124? I think I spent $45 to get this from the American Policy Center. You can see down below. Here's their website on the back. I think it's worth it if you do get something from them. Tom DeWeese will send you a regular newsletter keeping you informed of their activities, trying to reverse and stop this Agenda 21 program being infiltrated to city councils and governments, school systems, police departments all over the United States. They're quietly taking over, creating more rules and laws so that we can do anything, can't do anything, can't go anywhere, can't accumulate anything. What, you say? Well, listen up. Page 10. Development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So at present, by its proponents, the following is the most common definition of sustainable development. Development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Sounds maybe okay. Again, this simple worded positive sounding definition hides an agenda that can only lead to a breathtaking transformation of society. According to its advocates, to achieve the goal of meeting today's needs without compromising the needs of future requires massive amounts of land and natural resources to be permanently locked away from use. So they want to lock away most of the resources and land from our use. Sounds to me like they're trying to take away our ability to earn a living and grow, and our children, and our children's children. And we know from reading the other book I just finished, Secret Societies and Subversive Movements, These people are very evil and have plans for world domination. More importantly, it requires an entirely new way of thinking about how society is organized. In order to fully comprehend the magnitude of the changes required to enforce sustainable development, a much more descriptive and honest definition is necessary. Imagine in America, in which a specific ruling principle is created to decide proper societal conduct for every citizen. So somebody is going to decide our conduct for every one of us. And I, for one, will never embrace the adulterous, bisexual, homosexual, pedophilia, transgenderism, and the rest of the whole decadent program. Ashley Madison, find someone to cheat on your spouse with confidentiality guaranteed. This is coming from the program from the United Nations. They want everybody to think they can just do everything and have a party and do drugs and drink and not pay attention while they slowly integrate sustainability policy into our country. Destroy Jesus, destroy Christianity. That principle would be used to consider regulations guiding everything from what you eat to the size of the home you are allowed to live in. The size of the home you are allowed to live in. The type of job you may have. They will dictate where you work. The method of transportation you use to get to work. Citizens will not be allowed to have their own car. The way you dispose of waste. You'll be fined and feed and probably sent to jail if you don't process your waste exactly how they tell you to. The size of your family. You'll have to get a permit to have a child. I'm adding some stuff here that I've read before. As well as the quality and amount of education your children may receive. You can bet they will not educate we non-Jews, the Goyim they call us, or the Freemasonic fraternities call us, profane. We will not get the quality education that these other people who think they have superior DNA and intellect, IQ, have. So there'll be separate schools for them and us animals, Goyim they call us. Just saying, it is what it is. As I said, sustainable development affects every aspect of our lives. In short, sustainable development requires a complete transformation of American society, including our system of justice, our economic system, and our ability to make individual life choices, such as careers, family size, location of our homes. This is a wrenching transformation of society that Al Gore refers to in his book, Earth in the Balance. So they're using this Mother Earth thing to convince people of this. It's a lie. We've been going over history for the last 100 or so years. We know what the real purpose is. World domination by a certain group of people who consider themselves God's chosen people. He claims, Al Gore does, in his book Earth in Balance, he claims that this radical reorganization of human existence on Earth is necessary in order to cleanse our society of the purported evils of the 20th century Industrial Revolution. Wait a minute. Doesn't Al Gore have a huge yacht at a marina? You see what I'm saying? The have and the have-nots, the divide will be greater. Right now, you know, the have and the have-nots is like here. We're too close to them. They want us way out here. They don't even want to talk to us. Never let their kids ever marry into our groups. This is pretty serious stuff. Al Gore's words are pretty powerful and should concern anyone trying to make their way in our modern world. The rules are changing and a new power elite is taking control. How many companies were startups in people's garages and went on to be a huge success? But you know, these days they'll make that illegal. You won't be able to do it. Have a smart meter on your home. They'll know if you're doing something outside the box. That's the problem. They don't want us to have the creativity and flexibility to make it in the world. They want to control every aspect of our lives. And they're giving grants to city councils and county governments and towns and police departments, all across school systems, all across the nation. But those grants are tied to programs they call educational programs. I call mind control. And then they enact laws. They control the political leaders. And elected leaders now have less control, and they're getting their control is dwindling every week, every month, every year. And these appointed officials with all their programs and laws are taking over. So I guess soon enough the elected officials will be actually useless. Sustainable development imposes on our public education system to prepare our children to be proper global citizens living in a sustainable world. Today's that curriculum is called Common Core. Look what they did in Europe with all those independent countries creating an European Union. And as John Perkins in his book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, they sent people all around trying to get governments and countries and presidents to borrow money, knowing they couldn't pay it back. So they tied it to foreclosure and all kinds of bankruptcy rules. And they've done this all over the world, using the printing presses like the Federal Reserve to print the endless amounts of money to be able to give them control. All it takes for them is to turn on the printing press, because they control our money in the United States of America. And our government, our Constitution, gives our government leaders permission to make this cease and desist and start creating our own money interest-free. Why don't they do it? Because they're controlled, they're bought and paid for. They're part of the scheme. They're part of the fraternal lodges, secret mystery schools of Babylon. Part of the hidden hand, the Illuminati. With the huge influence from the Zionist, Talmudic Jewish folks, who have throughout history higher level leaders of countries and governments, and these people have been working in cahoots with each other against our interests, taxing us for money for their wars and their extravagant lifestyles. Sustainable development imposes on our economy to create public-private partnerships, PPPs, between businesses and government, making sure business becomes a tool to help implement the policies. So small business citizens like me, we can't compete with these PPPs, public-private partnerships. They control, they make the rules. They can shut me down, shut you down if you have a small business. A farm. What are they going to have? Co-op farms? Commune farms. Hey, communism. Sustainable development imposes upon the environment, leading to controls on private property and business. Under sustainable development, environmental protection becomes the excuse for all policy decisions, regardless of whether the environment would ever be affected. It is called the precautionary principle. So you're not going to be able to grow anything on your farm because of the precautionary principle that you might do something that might be dangerous to the soil or water. It forces long delays and massive studies over what might happen. And none of us can afford that. If all the stars are properly aligned with the moon on any given day of the week before deciding if a policy or a business plan is a danger to the environment. So fundamentally, if you don't have somebody connected at high places, in other words, sell your soul, you're not going to get anywhere. In short, the precautionary principle is a killer of economics, especially when the final decision is being made by boards. You ever gone to one of these community boards and tried to stand up there and say anything? Those people sitting up on that high-level throne are arrogant. Panels, councils armed with very specific anti-business bias. I've been there and done that. The current debate on rational health care and death causes is right out of the sustainable playbook, as it considers older people and the sick as no longer valuable resources to society. Think about that on your next birthday. Sustainable development imposes upon farming. Sustainable development policies affect farmers' ability to produce crops by regulating precious chemicals, energy, and water use in the name of environmental protection. To fully understand the folly of sustainable farming, one should take a good look at the current agricultural courses in several colleges. Check out Green Mountain College in Vermont and AG symposiums that now feature the use of oxen as replacements for non-sustainable tractors. Did you hear me? They want to use oxen instead of tractors. Students are paying for a college education to learn Davy Crockett's farming methods. Need more be said. Agenda 21. Well, moving on, page 11. Sustainable development imposes on our social and cultural environment. Political correctness is controlling immigration policy, multiculturalism, marriage laws, and even restrictions on what we can say in open society. Globally accepted truth, an actual United Nations driven concept. So whatever they say is truth. If you oppose the truth, deny the truth, you are an anti-government belligerent, probably mentally unstable, a criminal. If you're a Christian and you're not supporting gay marriage, pedophilia, transgenderism, bisexuality, pansexuality, etc. Ashley Madison's website where you can find a mate to cheat on your spouse, then you will be not accepting the United Nations new religion and rules and truth. And dictates the science and the knowledge we are allowed to pursue. This concept is now at the root of the public education system. Sustainable development imposes upon our mobility, with emphasis on carpools and public transportation. The expensiveness of gas is a result of sustainable development policies. These policies ban the drilling of oil, specifically American oil, in order to create shortages and drive up the price to get us out of our cars and into public transportation. So they have discovered this huge pool of oil in the Midwest, enough oil for 100 years or more for the USA. You would think that we as citizens of this country would benefit from this financial windfall. But wait a minute. It's not our country. We're not in control. The Zionists are in control. The fraternal orders, the Masonic lodges, the Illuminati, the Jesuits, the Vatican, the Bank of England, Bank of Germany are in control. They get all that wealth. We get nothing. Except for poorer and poorer. And eventually in some kind of communal encampment. Fenced in. And if you're too lazy to get up and go to work wherever they tell you to go, probably under horrible conditions, you'll become a criminal. You won't eat. To each according to his needs is their motto. This is communism. This isn't opportunityism. Just saying, go get this stuff. Get this book on his website. All these other books I've been reading. And we'll read further, God willing. Sustainable development imposed on public safety. New laws and regulations affect our right to privacy. According to sustainable doctrine, the implementation of real ID, the creation of a total surveillance society using biometrics is necessary to ensure that each citizen is adhering to the sustainable policies of daily life. We went over the book, The Jewish Utopia. We know what the Protocols of Zion says. We know what's in the Talmud. We know who's in control of most of the world. We know what they think of us. So how do you think they're going to take care of us when they continue to make it impossible for us to make money, force us into some kind of projects or gulags, as they call them in Russia, living buildings with all kinds of small apartments in city deteriorated areas, make everybody leave the countryside and healthy areas? We know the plans they have for us, if we believe what they have written and said. If we believe what the USA Georgia Guidestones say. If we believe the legislation and activity coming out of the United Nations. If we believe that they put Shiva and Kali and the big images on the Empire State Building. If we believe they put that giant goat on the Hoover Dam. If we believe Shiva's out in front of CERN and the 666 is in the logo. If we believe Monsanto is 666 in a numerology calculator. And as you are aware, I could quote things here for an hour or two. If we believe all that stuff, we better believe we're in trouble. If we believe what we see when we look at the sky spraying. If we believe on the internet and we go look up HAARP system, H-A-A-R-P, and we see them all over the country. Well, talking about believing, I thought maybe I'd look at some pictures before I continue on and finish this video. A world superstate, a world legislator, a world parliament, a world police force. And the name of these pictures I'm going to show you, the YouTube video they come from, many of them, is on the bottom so you can pause it to get it. But just consider what they're trying to do. There's the video on the bottom, and you can see where it came from. A single world currency, a world taxation system, implementation of Agenda 21 in the Earth Charter, ban documented. These people are part of this. The Benai community leader from Benai Birth, a Jewish organization, John Woodall. Go watch this video. See what he says. You look at the system, it's symbols in the background of these pictures. And you see some strange things. Look at that flag from the Benai Birth. Israel. Benai, teaching for the New World Order. That's what they were doing this speech after the Sandy Hook shooting, I think. Teaching for the New World Order. Look at this flag and the Israeli star on it. Isn't that on the dollar bill? Count the number of stars. Let's see if they don't have occult significance. Hitch your wagon to a star. Yeah, this was Sandy Hook school shooting. How sinister was this? Exercise is in our school systems. Continue on. Read this. There's a reason you separate military and police. One fights the enemies of the state. The other serves and protects the people. When the military becomes both the enemy of the state, tend to become the people. When the military becomes both, the enemies of the state tend to become the people. Here's Newsweek. Here's Newsweek with Obama doing a Shiva dance. God of all things. CERN, that Shiva thing I keep talking about. The opening of the abyss. And the logo at CERN. The U.S. Blue Horizon. Some of these symbolisms of our military and police is just too much to believe. You can see it on all these badges. The sun, the hurricane symbol, United Nations, the torch, the eagle. Then they sky spraying and harp systems. These are the people bringing us Agenda 21. Look at the fleur-de-lis on top of this symbol. Symbol they now use for the Boy Scouts. Mutually assured destruction. The nuclear method and the current method of sky spraying. U.S. underground facilities and tunnels. When they pull off the big, whatever they're going to do, event, false flag or whatever. They've got a whole nation to live in underground. They got this big machine that makes the tunnels. Some citizens are trying to tell everybody. Those harp systems I told you about, look where they are. What does that stuff they spray in the sky do to us? Make people lethargic, lower IQ, sick. And how many people are paying attention? A lot of people are speaking out. A lot of people are speaking out. And then, of course, Sandy Hook, while they're spraying us, they got people saying this: all humanity is one people. While they're spraying us, you just saw the pictures. Harmony of science and spirituality. Universal education. Institutions for world peace. Go see this video. Speaking at Sandy Hook. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. So on one side of their mouth, they're spraying us like we're bugs. And the other, they're trying to rope us into the new age. Look at that guy praying back there at the Sandy Hook speech by these people from Benign Birth. Meanwhile, they're spraying us and people are protesting. Meanwhile, they're promoting men being transferred into women. This guy said something that Caitlyn, formerly Bruce Jenner, didn't like. And she said, how would you like a ride to the hospital? So I guess once you're a man, you're always a man. He or she was going to punch him out. Miley Cyrus, 2009, before she was a sex kitten, mind control programming. This is what she looked like before. Hollywood and the Illuminati got to her. This is what she looks like now. Is that what they want to do to all of us? Georgia, USA Guidestones. I keep talking about that. That's what it says right there. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. And then they do this. And people do this. And the government does this. In Sandy Hook shooting. A world parliament, a world police force, a single world currency, a world taxation system. Coming out of the United Nations. Project Unity. While they're controlling the weather and drying up the water in the Midwest. Meanwhile, you're not going to believe this, white phosphorus dumped on the Palestinian people. Would you like this dumped on your neighborhood and your house and your family? Be kind of horrible. Meanwhile, you got Obama sitting in something that looks like Satan's throne. Look at that bow and arrow there. Think there's a message in there for us? Hunger Games, the movie? Denver International Airport? All kinds of... Meanwhile, in the school systems, they're having these shooting exercises with the police. Right in front of our kids. They announced the Sandy Hook school shooting an hour before it happens. Crisis mapping, human data computation. These people that do the school shootings and other stuff, they look like zombies. All politics of the evil kind. Integrated Public Alert Warning System, IPAWS. They can make anybody believe anything anytime they want. www.smart911.com. I was buying some potatoes in the store the other day. It actually said smart potatoes. The Partners. Banned documentaries. Go look at this video. The symbol for the Illuminati. The people who want the world domination. These new electronic systems. Trauma cleaning, crime scene cleaning, homicide, suicide, unattended death, accidents, injuries, vehicle blood, the Sandy Hook children. So they had this truck out there at the Sandy Hook children shooting. Look what it says on the truck. Industrial accident, decomposition cleanup, blood cleanup, bodily fluids, sewage cleanup. Sandy Hook school shooting. Hazard removal, biohazard, flood restoration, squats and drug dens, hoarding, filth, tear gas remediation. Yeah, what's going on in our future? Solution, you're not going to believe this. Sandy Hook school shooting. The solution, it says Agenda 21 on this video, ban documentaries. Solution, Agenda 21, the Sandy Hook children. Meanwhile, sustainable development, they're sky spraying us. Man-made global warming is chemtrails. Somebody's t-shirt. Geoengineering, Jade Helm 15, sentient mass. Jade Helm, is it martial law or invasion training? William Cohn, U.S. Defense Secretary, April 28, 1997. Others are engaging, even in an eco-type of terrorism, whereby they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes, volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves. So there are plenty of ingenious minds out there that are at work finding ways in which they can weaken, wreak havoc upon other nations. It's real. And that's the reason why we have to intensify our efforts. Weather warfare, William Cohn, U.S. Defense Secretary. Are we to believe what he just said? It's real. Electromagnetic waves, HARP systems. So they can do all this stuff. They have done all this stuff. They are doing all this stuff. Mind control, crisis actors, school shootings, movie theater, church shootings, college shootings, marathon events, 9/11, Oklahoma City bombing, train stations in London, taking over all the countries in the Middle East, overthrowing them, dragging the presidents through the streets. Assassinating presidents, Central America, Central America, chaos and murder and mayhem in Africa, Ukraine, Palestine, and weakening the United States people financially, making it ever harder for us to make a living. There's a plan. At some point when you can't pay your rent, you can't pay your electric, you can't buy groceries, what do? Who are you going to go to? So back to Agenda 21, what I call their tool for slowly turning up the heat, like you kill a frog when he doesn't jump out. With Agenda 21 and Common Core and all this other propaganda, putting people, equipment, and stuff in place, spying on us people, collecting data on us, cataloging us, assigning us probably a red dot, blue dot, yellow dot, non-threat or threat, knows too much, or is just a zombie. Will not accept the mark of the beast or will accept the mark of the beast. Will they embrace gay agenda and pedophilia or will not? Will want to continue to be a Christian and believe in Jesus or not? So I'll read a little bit more here and end this video. It is crucial for every American to understand that these issues we face today are not just random concerns that accidentally find their way into the forefront of public debate. They are all interconnected with the policies of sustainable development and the restructuring of our way of life. So they got the next chapter here, Top-Down Control, Chapter 2. So the next time I address this book, I will continue on in another video. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.